This is a presentation of my action research project. My action research project was undertaken at Wimmera Public School located in the Blue Mountains. The school has a population of 359 students, with 6% Indigenous students and 8% of students with language background other than English. The class I was placed on was a kindergarten Year 1 class, where there were 6 kindergarten boys and 14 Year 1 students. The class was considered to be a challenging class by other teachers in the school, with a number of additional needs, including 3 students who either were diagnosed with autism or showed distinct traits of autism, and 1 student with ADHD and trauma-related issues. There were also a number of unique personalities and characteristics of students in the class, and these students and the class as a whole benefited from teachers being aware and considerate of these students' needs and personalities. The class also had varying level of academic abilities, with a large number of the kindergarten and Year 1 students either working above or below their year level. This meant that differentiation was crucial in the planning of all lessons, and students often worked in ability groups, with the teacher rotating around to work intensely with groups. As a school, Stage 2 had been identified as low in literacy and numeracy and was involved in a Bump It Up program which gave selected Year 1 students access to learning support 3 days a week. Many of the students in my class received this support from SLSOs. The positive behaviour for learning framework was a key driver in classroom engagement. I also found that students were often doing a lot of the traditional rote style of learning, working from worksheets and booklets where they did exercises and simple questions and answers. Although students responded to this behaviourist approach and were taught the New South Wales syllabus thoroughly, at times I observed that substantive engagement in the learning was not achieved. My mentor teacher was the assistant principal with over 20 years of teaching experience. She had a wealth of professional insight into the bigger picture of how the school runs and gained support for individual students. She was also very effective in catering to the needs of the diverse range of learners. Knowledge and competency in mathematics is an integral part of a student's life. However, it is often a subject where certain students experience anxiety in their learning. Due to this, I decided to focus on making my pedagogy for this learning area more engaging for my research project. Originally, my focus was on implementing concrete materials to make mathematics more engaging. I originally chose this focus as much research acknowledges that the implementation of concrete materials is key in teaching and learning fundamental mathematics. Booker et al., 2014. I found that my class was frequently doing sums off the whiteboard and working from workbooks or iMath worksheets in their mathematics lessons, and I observed that students lacked skills in utilising concrete materials. As my class was at a fundamental stage with their mathematical learning, being in kindergarten Year 1, I wanted to investigate how I could effectively implement concrete materials in their learning. I tried many approaches to achieve this, such as games involving counters to teach multiplication, used concrete 3D shapes, and brought in objects that were real-life examples of 3D shapes. However, I found that these lessons I implemented were not resembling of deep substantive engagement that aligned with the ME framework or principles of the Fair Go project. On reflecting on this, I decided to action a variety of best practice pedagogies to see which would be most engaging for my class in mathematics. Some were a success and some were not. I trialled problem-solving questions, which the students had no idea of how to approach, and so I had to sit with and work with them through the problem. I had the students make and decorate wristwatches, and then they wore them and exchanged the time with other students. And this was surprisingly a success as students were collaborating well and enjoying the task and gaining rich learning. But I resultantly didn't collect any data for this. I integrated technology through using interactive online clocks to assist them in draw the time and making a schedule of the day. I provided open-ended activities such as the think board. In mathematics, these problems are known as high ceiling, low floor problems, and are considered best practice pedagogy as they provide the opportunity for all students to show what they know, regardless of their ability level, rather than just answering questions which are either right or wrong. However, the pedagogy I implemented, which I found to be the most engaging for my class, was project-based learning. Therefore, I changed the focus question on my action research project to be, how can I creatively implement project-based learning in mathematics and the combined Kinder Year 1 setting to create meaningful and rich learning experiences for the students? The pedagogy of project-based learning particularly appealed to me for this action research project because as my class had a wide range of ability levels, one of the biggest challenges I found was keeping all students engaged. Pattern 2012 explains that project-based learning can suit a wide range of ability levels, can be made a fun and interesting process to engage in, and can also achieve curriculum content. This seemed ideal to achieve meaningful and rich learning experiences for all students in my Kinder Year 1 class, and achieving this was important to me as it is central to my philosophy. Project-based learning is also noted as an effective pedagogical strategy as it encompasses a mix of inquiry and problem-based learning and fosters a wide range of skills such as time management, collaboration, and problem solving that students will need for their future. Pattern 2012. There were, however, some shortcomings of the implementation of this pedagogy. Firstly, the key factor that defines project-based learning is the public exhibition that drives the project. Pattern 2012. However, students only presented their project to their class. Secondly, project-based learning involves an extended process of design, planning, and carrying out an extended project. Pattern 2012. Unfortunately, this project was carried out only over an extended lesson, and the final step of the project also, unfortunately, had to be cancelled. These shortcomings were due in part to external limitations and also due to my own lack of planning and preparation. Despite these shortcomings, I still strongly feel that this focus for my action research was successful in achieving substantive engagement for my students and remained true to the essence of what project-based learning is. Ethics approval was received from my mentor teacher to collect data, who, as the assistant principal, was also able to give permission on the principal's behalf. Individual permission forms from the students' parents or guardians was not required by the school and was noted on the permission form gained from my mentor teacher. 4 types of data was collected to determine if my implemented pedagogy was successful in promoting deep engagement through the means outlined by the Me Framework and FairGo project. McNiff 2016 explains that data collection helps to ensure intended outcomes and changes are successful, as intended philosophy of a researcher may not always be realized in practice. Additionally, collecting data is an important part of the action research cycle, where data collected can inform future action and determine success. This cycle was integral to my project. There are 4 types of data collected throughout the action research. The first was the student work samples, which I collected and took photos of to present in the findings of this presentation. I also collected records of conversations. My data for this type was between teacher-student or teacher and several students. The criteria for the type of conversations I was looking for was exploratory and/or dialogical talk, which is indicative of deep engagement. Vest 2013. Observational notes and reflections from myself and from my mentor teacher was also taken. This took the form of both written lesson feedback forms and verbal comments from my mentor teacher. My personal observations were gathered through my own personal written notes and reflections. Through my and my mentor teacher's observation, I was looking for on-task behaviour and interactions that show engagement. Self-reflection. I had my students deliver their self-reflections orally and embedded in the presentation they gave of their project. I asked the students to talk about what they did, what they liked about their project, how they worked in their groups, what did different members in their group contribute, how did they decide where to put different places on the map. This promoted the students to reflect on the 3 forms of engagement: operative, effective, and cognitive. I will now present my data analysis of data and findings. Work samples. For the project, I had my students work in small groups to create a town plan that cover the content of position and three-dimensional space in the Mathematics Early Stage 1 and Stage 1 New South Wales syllabus. Students used a map template and a sheet of shape places to cut and paste onto the map to design their own town. From the 2D plan, it was planned that students would then create a 3D model of their plan by using household recycled items such as tissue boxes, cans, and biscuit containers. However, this was not achieved due to uncontrollable circumstances. The work samples show that students produced town plans that were thoughtfully designed, and in many cases, students went beyond what was required of them by drawing their own places and buildings on the map. This shows us that operative little E engagement was achieved as students were working hard throughout the lesson. It also demonstrates that students were big M motivated to do their work, and they did more work than what was required of them. Munns and Martin, 2005. The project also mobilised the discourse of ability, control and place, which are core principles of engaging pedagogy defined through the Fair Go project. Munns, Sawyer and Cole, 2013. This is evident in the work sample that students were able to achieve in the project despite their ability level, have control and agency on the design of their town plans, and relate it back to their local community through the local street names being used on the map, and students also drawing their own homes into the map. Munns et al. 2013 recognises that engaging pedagogy is relevant to the real world, and this project achieved this as the task impersonated a real-world job, provided discussion about places and positioning of places in the students' local community, and many students drew pictures of their homes on their map, which means they are relating the work to their own lives. This gives the work much more personal meaning and connection to the students, and relates to the bigger engagement of the ME framework as students to make ties and connections between their school and home life, which promotes students to feel that school is a place for them and is relevant to their own lives. Munns and Woodward, 2008. Record of conversations. The data of conversations show that students were enjoying, engaging in, and proud of the work they were doing. This can be seen in conversation 2 and 3 as students were eager to show and talk about their work with me. This shows effective little engagement in their work as students are feeling good and proud of what they were doing. I also took the opportunity when interacting with the students to gauge their understanding of the learning content of the intended syllabus outcomes. For example, in Conversation 2, I quizzed the students on their knowledge of the 2D shapes they used to draw their houses, which is an outcome of 2D shapes. And in Conversation 3, I wanted to formatively assess if the students could recognise the use of 3D objects in everyday situations. 3D shapes. This shows that students were gaining knowledge through the project. Open review of problems through dialogue is also an indicator of engagement. VES 2017. This is seen in Conversation 4 as a student notices, on reflecting of his work, that he has placed a building in the middle of the road. This also demonstrates cognitive little engagement as he is reflectively involved in his work. The conversations also indicate that the students were relating their knowledge and experiences back to their own life. For example, in Conversation 4, a student indicated that they live on one of the streets in the map. And in Conversation 1, students talked about how they place buildings according to how it is in their neighbourhood. This shows that students are experiencing big engagement as ties are built between their school and home life. Observations. Compared to other lessons where I observed avoidance disengagement behaviour, through the project I observed that all students were actively involved in their learning, little e, and motivated to engage in their task, big E motivation, which I noted in my reflection. The students also presented their work at the end of the lesson to the class, and all groups were enthusiastic in volunteering to do this, which shows they had pride in their work. My teacher also observed that the town planning project was very engaging for the students, which produced, as she quoted, fabulous results and lots of mathematical vocabulary. She also verbally commented to me that she was impressed with how well all the students worked together in their groups. This also indicates that little engagement in students' learning was achieved. Student self-reflection. The students' reflections embedded within the presentation of their town plan gave students the opportunity to demonstrate and exercise knowledge, ability, and voice in their learning. Knowledge was expressed as students used the mathematical language of position in Student Reflection 4 and Student Reflection 6. Ability was demonstrated as the students presented their achievements of the town plan, and voice was mobilized as students were able to talk and reflect on their learning and the process they experienced to produce the map. Control over learning was also expressed in Student Reflection 3, as the students expressed how they enjoyed planning the town and choosing where to put the buildings. Many students in the reflections also expressed how they enjoyed the project in Student Reflection 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9, demonstrating effective little engagement, and also explained how they went about working with their group. Student Reflection 5 and 7, which demonstrates operative little engagement. As students talked about how they worked well in their group, we can be reminded by how the socio-constructivist theory dictates that people learn through social interaction. Duchesness and McMahon, 2016. This data shows evidence to how students work well. This was promoted through the project-based learning pedagogy, which was implemented as the students' reflections showed evidence of collaborating, problem-solving, creativity, and being passionate learners. Through engaging in the Action Research Project, I have learned and discovered a tool for professional development which I can always draw upon to ensure that my practice is constantly improving and adapting. While my focus for this Action Research Project was implementing project-based learning to create engaging pedagogy in mathematics, in the future, my action research might be focusing on another key learning area or on another style of engaging pedagogy, such as implementing technology effectively, which is guaranteed to be something that will be required of me repeatedly as a teacher. By collecting and analyzing a wide range of data from my practice to tell truth to the success or shortcomings of my practice, I can create awareness that will enable me to change, alter, or make adaptations to my practice and pedagogy that strive to promote substantive engagement for the students I teach. Through observing and reflecting on my practice, as the framework of the Action Research Cycle dictates, I can ensure that my teaching practice is current, responsive, and engaging throughout the course of my career. I have also gained a wealth of knowledge from this assignment about what dictates and defines substantive engagement in student learning. From the theories and framework of the Me framework and the Fairgo project, I now have an understanding of what constitutes quality pedagogy and can use this as something to measure my own practice against and strive to achieve. But what I believe to be most important about the ability to utilizing the tool of action research is that it will help me stay true to my philosophy to ensure that what I value and strive to achieve is realized in reality.